Board members, welcome back. The boardroom is open, and today we're going to take a look at my father's work. Now, my father's work is an interesting game where, over the course of 3 generations, you're going to finish inventing, crafting, creating whatever it was your father was working on. So let's dig in and play around with my father's work. All right, the first puzzle we need to solve is the puzzle of the game board here. You can see there's only 4 pieces. It's not too difficult. The 5th piece, however, is the insanity track. The insanity track has 2 sides, one for the 1st and 2nd generation, the alternate side for the 3rd generation. So at the beginning of the game, be sure to place the insanity track on its 1st and 2nd generation side. Next, be sure to put the tray of components close by: chemicals, coins, bodies, animals, gears, engineer knowledge, biology, chemistry, and occult knowledge, all in the accessory tray. Also, you'll need to load up the tray of experiment cards A, B, and C. Shuffle each deck, place each deck in order like so. The other thing you'll need are the tile upgrades for your estates. There are 2 types, the 1st and 2nd generation tiles, and then the 3rd generation tiles, which will come into play at the beginning of the 3rd generation. Shuffle these tiles, place them here, draw 4, place them face up like so. You'll also need the map, which is located in the Village Chronicle for whichever scenario you choose. We are not choosing a scenario this time, because I don't want to spoil anything, but here is the Village Chronicle. We'll just turn to the first page, which is the cost of disease. We'll just set the map up like so. Next thing you need are the vanity upgrades. There's going to be 2 of each: Catacombs, Rose Garden, Operating Theater, Tesla Coils, and the Moat. You'll also need the generation and round markers. First generation starts in early years, then you'll move through the late, middle, and late years, then it'll become the 2nd generation, and so on and so forth. Last but not least, you'll need the Angry Mob and the Suspicion marker. They'll be placed according to the storybook. We'll place them here for now. You'll also want to shuffle the compulsion cards, set those nearby, as well as the maladjustment deck. Shuffle those and put those nearby as well. With the board set up, now let's talk about the player setup. Here we have a copy of the estate board, as you can see down here. With the estate journal here, you'll keep knowledge over generation. We've got the quarters, which is where your workers are placed temporarily before taking their actions. We've got the perform experiment laboratory section here. We've got the record knowledge section here. There's a section here for estate affairs where you draw additional experiment cards or gain income. And then the outskirts here are where you put your estate upgrades. Let's talk about the player pieces. The game comes with several different types of miniatures, and what's unique about these miniatures is that you can pick and choose which miniature you like to do a certain job. You have yourself with a hexagon base. You have your spouse with a circular base with points on it. You have servants with just circular bases. Then you have caretakers with square bases. You're going to start with servants in the lost area on the board. You'll also place 1 caretaker in the lost section on the board. The rest of your workers will go into the quarters, as explained before. You also have 4 journal markers, 1 for each of the sections: chemistry, biology, engineering, and the occult. Now, these do have little standees, so they can kind of fit into the recesses of the board. However, the slightest touch can tip them over and cause a domino effect. Keep an eye out for that. I'll lay them down flat for this explanation. You're also going to have an insanity marker, as well as a creepy marker. Those are used to keep track of how creepy you are and how insane you might go. You're also going to draw one of each card from the experiment decks. Just to start your starting hand of cards. You also have your score marker. Looks like a little Tesla-type light bulb. It goes 0 spot here on the game board. Then you're also going to get one major experiment. This is the experiment your father was working on and has passed down from generation to generation, and now it is up to you to finish teleportation in this example. You also have access to a tip card should you need reminders of what the icons mean and how the round sequence goes. Be sure to take one nay and yay voting chip, as well as a 50-point, 100-point marker, just in case you are the best experimenter out there. With that said, let's talk about how a round goes, what you can expect to do during the round, what are the actions that these people can take, and what is the overall purpose of playing the game. At the start of each round, a player will draw a card of their choice from the experimentation decks. We'll choose letter A because they're the simplest, and so the first generation early years makes it more plausible that we'll actually complete this experiment. You'll also receive 3 coins as income. After which, every player starts with a storage shed, and the storage shed states, at the start of each generation, gain 1 resource of your choice. Well, we look down at our experimentation cards, you can see that we need bodies, animal parts, chemicals, some biology knowledge cubes, more animal parts, more chemicals, and so on. So perhaps we want to try to complete this metaphysical curse on our turn, which requires a body and an animal part. Well, I will take a body, put it in my quarters, and store it there at the beginning of the round. On your turn, use your workers to place them in various spots along the game board. For example, you could place your spouse on the farmer's market. This paw symbol means you can gain 1 animal token. If, however, there were an opponent's piece here, you'd have to pay an additional coin to get that animal token. You can place multiple figures in one spot, and depending on how many people you put in the spot, that's how many of that item you will receive. You only ever need to pay $1 if there's an opponent figure on this spot, no matter how many people you put there. If you place yourself on a spot, not only do you not have to pay the $1 if there is an opponent there, you also gain twice the amount shown on the icons. So that's kind of a bonus of using yourself to go out and get goods. Sometimes you're able to use the servants in and out of town if you use the servants in your estate. Watch out. It takes 2 servants to perform an experiment. However, it shows that those 2 servants will become lost after that experiment. Or if you use yourself to perform the experiment, nothing ill happens. You can also use your servant to record knowledge. By placing the servant here, you can spend a knowledge cube equal to the color and the number shown above to gain knowledge in those areas. So for example, if I were to record knowledge for chemistry, I would spend 1 chemical cube, put it back in the tray, and move my piece along the journal like so. Doing that will give me a discount on all cards requiring chemistry pieces for the foreseeable future. 1 discount here, 2 discounts here, 3 discounts here. As you move along the track, there are special abilities that you get for the second spot on each track. For the second spot of chemistry, at the start of every generation, you will earn 1 servant from the lost pool. Put them into your supply. The second one in biology states that you store 2 extra resources between generations. Normally between generations, you lose all resources. The second spot in engineering shows that you have a B-level experiment towards any requirement needed. For example, spontaneous combustion pills. I don't know what a good idea those are to invent. However, we're going to give it a shot. Spontaneous combustion pills require that you have a level A experiment and 2 level B experiments either in play or saved in your saved experiments before you can craft this one. This spot here on the board satisfies the requirements of 1 of those B-level experiments. Pretty shady stuff. Let's look at some of the actions that are available on the map. Now again, this map is only but a sample of many maps in this book And once again, I will not spoil the storyline, so we won't get into the story. However, I'll just show you what some of these icons do and how the game is played when you place your figures there. We'll just use a servant for these examples. As we noted before, you go to the farmer's market with the paw, that will grant you an animal token. The blacksmith will grant you a gear. The park will grant you 1 chemical, which is these bottles here. The bank will grant you 2 coins. The builder's office allows you to upgrade your estate by purchasing one of the 4 available upgrade tiles, paying its cost, and playing it on the farthest leftmost empty slot until you get here, then the bottommost empty slot. Remember to pay the additional costs labeled in the slot in which you place that tile. Going to the town hall will move that angry mob farther away from your creepy token. Going to the cemetery will get you a body, but it will also increase your creepiness and the mob will begin to move towards your creepy marker. You do not want to have your token overtaken by the angry mob, or your pieces may only visit the church in town. When you go to the church in town, you can pay 0, 1, or 2 coins to move your creepy marker 1, 2, or 3 spaces away, thus kind of running away from the angry mob. Last on this one is the traveling caravan. It increases your creepiness, however, you do gain 1 occult marker. Now that's knowledge gained for the occult. When you use occult knowledge, sometimes it's required for the purchase of a card. For example, spontaneous combustion pills shows that it requires 3 occult knowledge tokens to invent these pills. However, you can also use occult knowledge as a wild resource. For example, the removed tail that is still alive invention. It requires 2 biology markers. You could use 1 occult and 1 biology. When you use an occult token, your insanity begins to climb. And when your insanity climbs, you're going to follow the icons here. For example, this one states, here, you're going to draw a compulsion card. Now, a compulsion card is a pretty good way to earn extra victory points by completing different objectives. Sounds like a pretty good deal, right? Well, however, if at the end of a generation, for every 2 compulsion cards you have incomplete, you're going to have to draw a maladjustment card. Maladjustment cards are bad news. You lose victory points, or worse, things can happen when you are maladjusted. Stay away from those whenever possible. Last thing we need to talk about is when your journal piece reaches the 4th slot on the board, you get a vanity upgrade. Now, the vanity upgrades are limited to 2 of each: the Tessa Coils, the Rose Garden, Operating Theater, Catacombs, and the Moat. When you're able to obtain one of these, you simply take it from the pile and place it in the nearest open upgrade slot, paying only the costs for the slot that it inhabits. So in this particular case, I'd pay nothing for the Moat, but I would have had nothing going on all game by the time I got this here, so I'm sure there would be other upgrade tiles in those spaces prior to me obtaining said Moat. That's really the gist of playing my father's work. You're just placing your people about town, or placing them throughout your estate, crafting experiments, gathering resources to craft more experiments, all geared towards finishing your father's great work, in this case, which is teleportation. One thing to keep in mind, at the end of every generation, you're going to lose all of your resources. Yes, all of them. Money too. The only thing you're going to get to keep is let's say we did perform the metaphysical curse. You will get to tuck 1 experiment away at the end of every generation to pass down from family to family so that you have that knowledge moving forward. Once you've lost all of your things, you dealt with any of your maladjustments, you then start a new generation by moving this here to the next generation. And that's after 3 rounds, the early, middle, and late round of each generation. You're going to discard these 2, slide these down, draw 2 more. Whether they're upside down or not, you're going to leave them, just for those people that drives them a little insane. You will also get to reset your insanity marker, which can be a good thing. And I think that's about it. Only differences between generation 1, 2, and then generation 3 is that you will end up flipping this bottom piece for generation 3. Then you will also clear the board of all these tiles and bring out the generation 3 estate upgrade tiles. One thing I neglected to mention, if you wish to purchase a tile and yours is all full, you can choose a spot on your estate that has a tile already there and remove it and replace it with the newest purchased tile. That's something you can do as well. When completing experiments, they offer rewards at the bottom. This particular one makes you go a little bit insane. I guess that's not a reward. However, it does reward you with a cube of chemical knowledge and a cube of occult knowledge and 3 victory points. This level C will start to anger the mob twice. However, it does earn you 10 victory points. There will be an additional 8 victory points if you were able to complete this in the first generation, an additional 4 victory points if you complete it in the second generation. The reason that is it's very difficult to pull this off in generation 1, a little easier to pull off in generation 2, and then it's kind of saying in generation 3, your estate should be in such a state to be able to handle crafting such a simple experiment. I think that about sums up playing around in my father's work. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. There are a lot more things to uncover. However, without spoiling the story, it really becomes difficult. The basics, though, have been laid out before you. The actions are taken along the town board and your estate board. You're managing your resources, managing your experiments. Just be sure to manage your expectations as well. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate this. And as always, we'll see you at the next boardroom meeting.